Dad came through the front door with that same sad face again, like somebody had reached inside him and switched him off. He didn't even take his shoes off right away. He just stood there, keys still in his hand, looking at the floor like the floor had done it. I knew before he spoke. He'd been working at this grocery store on the edge of town, one of those places with the flickering open sign and the aisles that always smelled like bleach and old fruit. The owner, Mr. Dorsey, was ruthless in that dumb, petty way that only small men can afford to be. Like he'd wake up and decide humiliation was an acceptable management style. Dad endured it for 6 months. No one else would have. He took the screaming, the insults, the stupid tests Dorsey would pull just to watch him squirm. Dorsey would dump a box of canned goods at Dad's feet and say, "Show me you're not useless," like Dad was a dog and the cans were hoops. He'd make Dad redo shells that were already perfect. He'd forget to pay him overtime, then act surprised when Dad asked. Dad would come home with those red lines across his knuckles from cardboard and tape, and he'd wash his hands in cold water like he was trying to rinse the day out of his skin. But he never complained, never once let it spill onto me like a stain. He carried it quiet, like suffering was something expected of him, like he'd already agreed, somewhere, that pain was just part of being alive. He wasn't a weak guy, either. That's the thing that still makes my throat tighten when I think about it. He was my hero, not in a my dad can beat up your dad way. More like, he was the only adult I'd ever seen who could walk into a room with his back straight, crack a joke, and make you believe the world wasn't as cruel as it felt. He was enthusiastic, charismatic, the kind of person who could talk to a stranger in line and have them laughing within 30 seconds. He'd do voices when he read instructions. He'd dance in the kitchen like an idiot while pasta boiled, just to make me roll my eyes. And our bond wasn't normal, I swear to God. I don't know how to explain it without sounding insane, but he could read my face like it was a screen. He'd look at me and just know when I was hiding something, when I was scared, when my stammer was about to get bad. I could sense him too, like an invisible thread was tied from my chest to his, and it would tug gently if we got too far apart. In a crowd, I could pick him out without seeing him. I just feel him, like my body was calibrated to his presence. Maybe that's why everything that happened after felt like the world itself tearing, like that thread getting yanked. He kept looking for work even while Dorsey was grinding him down. He signed up on every job portal you can imagine, typed up the same resume 100 times, rewrote cover letters with these careful, hopeful phrases he probably didn't even believe in anymore. I'd wake up some nights to pee and see light under his bedroom door, and I'd hear the soft click of keys, his quiet sighs, the occasional muttered, come on, like he was bargaining with the internet. Rejection emails piled up. You ever see a person try to pretend they're fine while their hopes get shredded one message at a time? It's not dramatic. It's not movie crying. It's this slow shrinking, like their shoulders sink a millimeter lower every day. Dad refused to shrink. He was religious, too, not in a preachy way. More like church was where he went to remember that there was supposed to be meaning. He dragged me with him sometimes, even though I hated it. The bishop loved Dad. The bishop would clap him on the shoulder and call him a noble soul, one destined to suffer. Like that was a compliment. Dad would smile politely, but later in the car he'd roll his eyes and say, if suffering's destiny, why do the assholes always look so comfortable? But he kept going. He believed in prayer the way some people believe in medicine, especially because of me. I had a stammer, not a cute little one, not a movie character quirk, a real one that could trap me in a sentence like barbed wire. My tongue would lock, my jaw would go tight, and the word would just refuse to come out. Kids at school thought it was hilarious. Teachers pretended it was inspiring when I managed a presentation without choking on my own name. Dad hated it, not because it embarrassed him, because it hurt me. He'd sit at the kitchen table and watch me struggle through a phone call, and you could see anger flickering behind his eyes, like he wanted to fight the concept of speech itself. He prayed for it, relentlessly, not for money, not for comfort, just for my voice to stop betraying me. Then, A few days after another rejection, after another quiet dinner with Dad pretending not to be exhausted, he came running toward me in the hallway like he'd been lit on fire. His face was glowing, breath uneven, eyes wide and wet. "Simon," he said, and my name didn't catch in his mouth like it sometimes did in mine. "Simon, look, look." He shoved his laptop at me with trembling hands. An email. His application had been accepted. Position, helper, at a research facility. Undisclosed project. For scientists. Extended duty hours possible due to lack of additional helper staff. Relocation might be required, but allowances were included in the salary. I read it twice because it didn't make sense in my brain. It felt like a scam email. Like one of those congratulations, you have won things. Dad was beaming like a kid who'd just been told Santa was real again. "See," he said, gripping the back of the chair like he needed something solid. "They need a helper. The pay's more than good enough to resist, Simon." There were typos in the email. Weird phrasing, like it was translated from another language. That should have been my first red flag. But all Dad saw was a number. We had expenses, rent, bills, groceries. My mom wasn't in the picture. It was just us, and Dad had been holding the roof up with his bare hands. "Yeah," I said, trying to match his energy even though my stomach was dropping. "Great, but you'll leave me here alone." His smile faltered for half a second. Then he smoothed it back onto his face like a practiced mask. "You're 16, he said, softer. "You don't understand yet. I'm doing this to secure your future. I'll visit every week. I promise. You don't need to worry." I wanted to argue. I wanted to scream, but it came out as a thick, stupid lump in my throat. Because I did understand. I understood exactly what it meant to watch someone you love break themselves for you. So I just nodded. He hugged me hard enough to hurt, like he was trying to press his reassurance into my ribs. The next day, he left. He had a duffel bag, a plastic folder with paperwork, and that nervous excitement that makes people talk too fast. He kissed the top of my head and said, "Be good. Don't do anything dumb. If you need anything, call me. Anytime." Then he walked out the door, and the house went quiet in a way I didn't know a house could. It wasn't peaceful. It was hollow, like the walls missed him. At first, I tried to keep busy. Homework, chores, anything that didn't involve sitting still and feeling the absence. I started practicing speech tutorials too. Videos meant for people who stammered. I'd sit in my room and whisper along, pushing air through my mouth like I was forcing a clogged pipe to clear. Ba. Breathing exercises, tongue placement, slow reading. I wanted to surprise Dad when he came back. I wanted to hand him a miracle the way he'd been begging God for one. 2 weeks passed. Dad didn't visit once. We spoke on the phone, though. A lot. At first, he sounded normal. Tired, sure, but normal. He'd tell me about the facility in these vague, careful ways. Like he was scared the phone was listening. "Big place," he'd say. "Cold. Lots of badges. Lots of doors. What do you actually do?" I'd ask. "Helper stuff," he'd answer. And then he'd laugh too quickly. "You know, carrying, cleaning, making coffee. They're intense, Simon. These scientists. But it's fine. Sometimes I'd hear something in the background. Not voices. Not machinery exactly. More like a faint, high-pitched chirping. Like insects, but metallic. Like a robot trying to imitate a cricket. "What's that noise?" I asked once. "Nothing," Dad said instantly. Too instantly. Just ventilation. He sounded distracted a lot, like his attention kept getting yanked away mid-sentence. Like he was reading something while he talked to me. Sometimes he'd pause, and I'd hear his breathing go shallow. "You okay?" I'd ask. "Yeah," he'd say, but it wasn't convincing. "Yeah, I'm good. Listen, you got to go. They're calling me." And then he'd hang up. The bishop called once too, asking why Dad hadn't been at church. I told him Dad was working out of town now. The bishop made this hum in his throat and said, "Your father is a noble soul. The Lord burdens those he trusts." I wanted to tell him to shove his burdens up his ass. Instead, I said, "Sure," and hung up. By the end of the second week, I'd started waking up with this tight, anxious feeling like my body knew something my brain refused to admit. Like that invisible thread between Dad and me was stretched too far and starting to fray. Then one night, my phone rang at 2 a.m. I jolted awake, so hard my heart actually hurt. The screen showed Dad. I answered immediately, whispering, "Dad? What's wrong?" His voice came through thin and wrong, slurred in places but not in a normal drunk way. Like his mouth wasn't syncing with his thoughts. "Simon," he breathed, and he sounded weirdly enthusiastic, like he was trying to be cheerful through a mouthful of gravel. "Simon, I'll visit you soon." "You're drunk," I said, sitting up. "Are you okay? Did something happen?" He ignored that. "But listen," he said, fast now, urgent. "Listen carefully. I'm sending you a package. It contains Aaron." I blinked in the dark. My brain tried to slot that into something sensible and failed. "Ooh," I said. My tongue snagged on the word, a tiny stammer flickering, and suddenly I was 10 years old again, getting laughed at in front of the class. Dad's breath hissed, like he was frustrated at the interruption. "Don't let it fall into anyone else's hands," he said. "Don't go outside. Don't visit your friends. Stay home until it arrives tomorrow. You hear me? Stay home." "Dad, what the hell are you talking about?" I said, louder now. "What's in the package?" He sounded like he was smiling, but it didn't reach his voice. "I love you," he said. "I'm doing this for you. Something clattered in the background. A sharp metallic sound, like a tray dropped on tile. Dad's voice dropped to a whisper that made my skin prickle. "Don't sleep," he said. "Not until it's here." Then he hung up. I stared at my phone like it had bitten me. I called it back immediately. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I texted, "Are you okay? Call me. What is Aaron?" No response. I didn't sleep. How could I? My brain kept replaying his voice. That weird forced happiness. The way he said Aaron like it meant something huge. At around 5 a.m., my body started doing that thing where it tries to shut down whether you want it to or not. My eyes burned. My thoughts went fuzzy. Every creak of the house sounded like footsteps. I sat on the couch with a kitchen knife in my lap because I didn't know what else to do with my hands. When the sun finally came up, it didn't make me feel better. It just made everything look too normal, like the world was mocking me. Around 10 a.m., I was pacing the living room, phone clenched so hard my palm hurt when the doorbell rang. Not once, 3 times, rapid, impatient. My stomach dropped through the floor. I moved to the door and looked through the peephole. No one. I opened it anyway because curiosity is a disease and fear is stupid like that. On the porch was a small package, 2x2 box, brown cardboard, like something you'd get from Amazon. No delivery man in sight. The street was empty. Trees swayed a little in the breeze. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked. For a second, I thought I saw movement near the trees, someone sprinting past, low and fast. But the leaves broke up the view, and I couldn't tell if it was real or my sleep-deprived brain inventing shadows. I snatched the package like it might evaporate and slammed the door. It looked ordinary. That was the worst part. Ordinary things aren't supposed to feel like threats. There was no return address I recognized. Just my name, my address, and a strip of tape that had been pressed down too hard, like whoever sealed it was angry. I carried it to the kitchen. The air felt tight, like there was a storm coming, but inside the house. I grabbed a knife and cut the tape. The flaps popped open. Inside was almost nothing, just a small clear bag, like a baggie you'd see someone hide drugs in, containing a shimmering powder. Not glitter, not sand, something finer, almost like dust, but caught the light in these tiny, bright flashes. Like crushed metal, like a galaxy someone had poured into plastic. Taped to the inside of the lid was a yellow Post-it note. My dad's handwriting. That alone made my throat close. On the Post-it, he'd written in quick, cramped letters. Read, follow, don't argue. And underneath, a list. Rule 1. Never open the front door after the delivery arrives. Not for anyone, not even me. Rule 2. If you feel the humming in your teeth, drink water. Slowly. It sounds stupid. Do it. Rule 3. Don't say your full name out loud while you're alone. Rule 4. Keep the bedroom window locked. If it breaks, don't look outside. Rule 5. The safest place is the bathroom. If you're scared, go there. Close the door. Sit on the floor. I read it twice. 3 times. It didn't make sense, but it was Dad's handwriting. That was the anchor that made it real. My hands started shaking. I whispered, "What the fuck is this?" The powder shimmered like it heard me. I picked up the bag with 2 fingers. It felt wrong. Too light, like it wanted to float. The plastic crackled softly, and I thought I heard something else under it. A faint chirping, metallic and tiny. I dropped it like it was hot. My phone was in my hand before I realized it. I called Dad. It rang once, twice, 3 times. He answered. "Simon," he said, and his voice was different. Not drunk now. Flat. Tired. Like he'd been awake for days. "Dad," I said, fast, my stammer flaring because my mouth couldn't keep up with my panic. "I got the package. It's just powder. Shimmering powder. And a Post-it." "What?" "That shimmering powder is Aaron," Dad said, like he was stating the weather. I froze. "What?" I said. "They're nanoparticles," he said. "Mr. Arthur will explain everything." I'm handing the phone to him. "No," I said immediately. "Dad, stop. Tell me what's going on. Why are you?" The line went quiet for a second. Then I heard that faint chirping again, but louder, like it was right next to the phone. Metal scraping against metal, like someone dragging a fork across a pan. My skin crawled. A new voice came on, smooth and calm, with an accent I couldn't place. Not fully British, not fully anything. Like his mouth had learned English from textbooks. "Hello, young lad," the man said. "This is Arthur, senior scientist." My mouth went dry. "Where's my dad?" I said. "He is present," Arthur said, like a lawyer. "Your father is a hardworking man. Don't let him down." "What is this?" I demanded. "What did you send me?" Arthur's voice didn't change. That was the scary part. Like it didn't have emotions to lose control of. By the time we were speaking, he said, "Aaron has already entered you." I laughed, sharp and panicked, because that was insane. "Bullshit," I said. But then something happened. I realized I was speaking fluently. No cachis, no stos, no panic in my tongue. My stammer was gone. The realization hit me like a wave. It was so sudden, so clean, that my eyes actually filled with tears. "What?" I started, and the word came out smooth. "What the hell?" Arthur hummed, pleased. "Your father told us about your speech complication," Arthur said. "Aaron is adaptive. It integrates. It improves. It is the cure your father prayed for." In the background, I heard Dad's voice, muffled, yelling something. I couldn't make out the words, but it sounded desperate, not happy. Arthur spoke over him, still calm. "Your father will visit in 2 days," Arthur said. "For now, do as instructed. Stay home. Do not invite anyone. Do not go outside. You will feel strange. That is normal." "Normal?" I snapped. "You just told me something is inside me." Arthur's voice sharpened by half a degree, like a knife being angled. "Aaron is not something," he said. "Aaron is a process." Then the call ended. Just like that. No woodbye. I stood in my kitchen holding my phone, staring at the bag of shimmering powder on the counter. The air smelled metallic. Not like blood, more like pennies and cold appliances. Like the inside of a battery. My thoughts felt pulled, like something unseen was tugging at the edges of them. Like my brain was a magnet and something was sliding into place. I tried to talk again just to test it. "Simon," I said my own name. Smooth. Perfect. My heart pounded so hard I felt in my teeth. I should have been terrified. I was. But under the terror was something else. Something so bright it hurt. Relief. I'd spent my whole life afraid of speaking. Afraid of ordering food. Afraid of reading aloud. Afraid of being trapped in my own mouth while people watched. And now it was gone. It felt like someone had unknotted a rope around my throat. I smiled, shaky and disbelieving. Then I felt a sensation behind my eyes, like pressure building. A hum started. Not in my ears. In my skull. In my teeth, like the post-it said. A soft vibration, like a distant engine. My smile died. I stumbled to the sink and drank water because Rule 2 sounded stupid, but Dad wrote it. And right then, Dad's handwriting was the closest thing I had to sanity. The water tasted wrong, like it had been sitting in metal too long. The humming eased a little. I set the glass down, and then I heard a voice. Not from the room, from inside me. It used my voice, my tone, but it wasn't me. It sounded like an imitation of my speech, like someone had listened to recordings and learned how to mimic the patterns. "Hello, Simon," it said from somewhere behind my thoughts. My knees buckled. I grabbed the counter to stay upright. "Oh," I whispered. A sensation like chains slid around my mind. That's the only way I can describe it. Like something wrapped itself around my consciousness and gently pulled me backward. I was still aware. That was the worst part. I didn't black out. I just moved, or rather, my body moved without my permission. My hands lifted. My mouth opened. "I am Aaron," my mouth said in my voice. Inside, I screamed. Nothing came out. It wasn't pain. It wasn't like being possessed in a movie with demonic horror music. It was clinical, efficient, like I'd been moved from the driver's seat to the trunk while the car kept going. Aaron walked my body around my kitchen like it was inspecting it. It flexed my fingers. It tilted my head. It opened my mouth in front of the microwave door like it was using the reflection as a mirror, then paused. Rule 3 flashed in my head. Don't say your full name out loud while you're alone. Too late. I'd already said Simon, but not my full name. I didn't know why that mattered. Aaron's attention drifted to the bag of shimmering powder on the counter. It picked it up. The plastic crinkled. Aaron held it to my nose and inhaled, slow, like it was savoring something. Then it laughed. A small, quiet laugh that made my skin crawl because it came out of my throat like it belonged there. "I am inside," Aaron said, "but I am not complete. I try to fight. I try to move my own hand. I try to bite my tongue. Anything. Nothing. It was like punching underwater. Resistance without effect. Eventually, the humming eased again and the chains loosened. Not because I won, because Aaron decided it was done. I blinked and suddenly I was back in my body like I'd been shoved forward. I gasped and sank to the floor, shaking. I tested my voice again. "Okay," I said. The word caught. "Ooh, okay." My stammer was back. That should have been comforting. Proof I was me again. It wasn't, because even with the stammer back, I could still feel Aaron like a presence in the corner of my mind. Like someone standing behind a curtain, breathing quietly. The cycle repeated. Hours would pass where I felt normal, scared but normal. Then the hum would build, and Aaron would slide into the driver's seat again. When Aaron was in control, my stammer vanished completely. My speech became smooth and confident, like I'd always wanted. It made me hate it even more because it was using my dream like a leash. When I woke from those stretches of control, things would be off. My breath smelled pungent, like burnt wires and old pennies. My tongue would taste metallic. My nails looked slightly reddish at the edges, like I'd been digging into something raw. Sometimes my hands were sticky, and I'd scrub them until they hurt, trying to get rid of a smell I couldn't name. I started keeping notes because my memory felt smeared, like someone had run a damp cloth across it. I'd write the time. I'd write what I remembered. I'd write, "If you're reading this, you are Simon. Do not trust the humming. Drink water. I try to sleep with the lights on. I try not to sleep at all, but exhaustion is a bully. It will sit on your chest until you give up." When I slept, I'd have these half dreams where I was standing behind glass watching my own body move. Aaron would pace. It would touch objects. It would stand by the window and tilt its head like it was listening to something outside. Rule 4, keep the bedroom window locked. If it breaks, don't look outside. I started checking the window lock obsessively. Before bed, after waking, when the hum got loud. One afternoon, maybe 4 days after the package arrived, time got slippery. I was hurrying down the stairs to get my notebook because I felt the hum building and I needed to write something down while I was still me. My foot slipped on the edge of a step. I went down hard. My head hit the railing, then the floor. Pain flashed white, then black. As darkness closed in, I felt the chains return. Not gently this time. Fussed. Hungry. Like Aaron had been waiting for an opening. My limbs moved on their own as I lost consciousness. When I woke up, I was on the couch. My head throbbed. My mouth tasted like metal. And my notebook was open on the coffee table with a new line written in my handwriting. Neat and smooth, without any of my usual messy scratches. Injury increases access. I stared at it until my eyes burned. I tried calling Dad again, over and over. Sometimes it rang out. Sometimes it didn't ring at all. Once it connected and I heard breathing on the other end, shallow and tight, like someone was holding a phone under a pillow. "Dad," I whispered. No answer. Then the line clicked dead. I started thinking about Rule 5. The safest place is the bathroom. If you're scared, go there. Close the door. Sit on the floor. I tested it. When the hum got loud, I'd lock myself in the bathroom, sit on the tile with my back against the tub, knees to my chest like a kid hiding from thunder. It helped. Not because it stopped Aaron, but because it gave me something to do. A ritual. A place. Aaron didn't like the bathroom. I could feel that. The hum would rise, then hesitate, like it didn't want to push through the narrow space. I had no idea why. Maybe because it was small. Maybe because the acoustics made my own breathing too loud. Maybe because it was the only room without a window. I started eating in there too. I'd bring crackers and water, lock the door, chew slowly while my brain tried not to collapse. I got paranoid. I started watching the street through the blinds. I stopped answering calls from friends. I told them I was sick, which wasn't even a lie. Every time the doorbell rang, neighbor kids, mail, anything, I flinched like I'd been shot. Because Rule 1 said, never open the front door after the delivery arrived. Not for anyone. Not even Dad. Not even Dad. That part haunted me the most. Why would Dad write that? Why would he tell me not to open the door for him? The next day, again, time is slippery, but it was after the fall, after the note, after I'd stopped trusting sleep. The doorbell rang. Once. Then a knock. Then another knock. Harder. I froze in the hallway, heart hammering so loud I thought Aaron could hear it. The hum of my teeth was low, but present, like a warning. I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. Dad stood on the porch. He looked wrong. Not wrong like evil twin wrong. Wrong like exhausted, drained, hollowed out. Like someone had scooped the light out of him. He had dark circles under his eyes. His cheeks were sharper. His clothes hung on him like he'd lost weight fast. And he was holding a small duffel bag like he didn't know where else to put his hands. Relief hit me so hard I almost sobbed. Then Rule 1 slammed into my brain like a door. Never open the front door after the delivery arrives. Not for anyone. Not even me. Not even me. My fingers hovered over the lock. Dad knocked again. "Simon," he called, and hearing his voice outside made something in me twist. I wanted to rip the door open and fall into his arms. But my brain kept replaying his 2 a.m. call. His weird, forced happiness. The way he handed the phone to Arthur like he wasn't allowed to talk. Dad pressed his forehead to the door like he was listening. "Open up," he said, and his voice cracked on the words. "Please, I'm sorry. Just open it." My hand shook. I ran to my room and grabbed paper and a pen so fast I almost tripped. I scribbled, "Messy. We'll only talk in sign language for some time." No speaking. I didn't know sign language beyond a few basic gestures, but it was something. It was control. I shoved the note in my pocket, walked back to the door, and unlocked it. The moment it opened, Dad stepped forward like he'd been waiting to collapse into me. He hugged me hard, crushing, desperate. I smelled him, sweat and cold air, and that faint metallic tang that had been haunting my house since the package arrived. His hand shook on my back. "You okay?" he whispered into my hair. I pulled back and held up the note. Dad's eyes darted over it. His mouth twitched into a smile, so forced it hurt to see. "Oh," he said, too loud, too cheerful. "Yeah, sure. Sign language. That's great, buddy. That's great." He thought I was practicing speech stuff. He thought it was progress. He didn't understand. Or maybe he did, and he was pretending not to, because pretending is sometimes the only way to keep moving. He looked past me into the house like he was checking for something. I tried to keep my breathing steady. My teeth hummed faintly. Dad stepped inside and closed the door carefully behind him, like the outside was dangerous. He set his duffel down. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He hesitated, then handed it to me like it weighed 100 pounds. It was a printed email, official looking, the kind with a logo at the top that meant nothing to me. In bold letters, integration support, home phase. I stared at it. Dad's eyes were locked on mine. His expression was pleading without words, like he wanted me to understand that whatever he'd done, he thought it was worth it. He thought it would save me. My hand started shaking again. Dad made a motion with his fingers, clumsy, like he was trying to mimic signing. Then he gave up and mouthed, silently, "I'm sorry." I swallowed hard. I didn't know what to do with that. I pointed to my mouth, then shook my head, trying to communicate. No talking. Dad nodded quickly, grateful, like he was relieved I wasn't speaking. That should have scared me more. We moved through the house like strangers, like we were both afraid that if we moved too fast, something would snap. Dad tried to act normal. He opened the fridge, stared at the contents like he didn't recognize food, then closed it again. He rubbed his hands together like he was cold, even though the heat was on. He kept glancing at the windows. At one point, he flinched at a sound outside, a car passing, maybe, and his whole body tensed like he was about to run. I wanted to ask 1,000 questions. What is Aaron? What did you sign? What did they do to you? Why did you bring this into our lives? But I couldn't risk speaking, because when I spoke, the stammer came back, and the stammer meant I was me, but it also meant I was fighting a leash that Aaron could yank whenever it wanted. And I didn't know if Dad being here made Aaron stronger or weaker. That invisible thread between us, if it was real, felt like it was vibrating. As dusk approached, I started feeling the hum build again. That pressure behind my eyes, that subtle tightening in my skull. Aaron was waking up. Dad noticed something. He watched me, his brow furrowed, his mouth set in this grim line. He stood abruptly and walked to the bathroom. He opened the door and looked inside like he was checking it. Then he looked back at me and pointed. Rule 5. The safest place is the bathroom. I nodded and went in. Dad followed me, then stopped in the doorway like he wasn't allowed to cross. His eyes were glossy. He mouthed again, silently, "Stay awake." I sat on the tile floor. Dad closed the bathroom door, but not all the way, just until it was almost shut, leaving a thin crack of hallway light. I could hear him pacing outside. The hum grew louder. My teeth vibrated. My thoughts started slipping like wet hands losing grip. I pressed my palms to my temples and tried to stay present. Tried to anchor myself to the cold tile under my legs, the smell of soap, the sound of Dad's breathing outside the door. A whisper stirred behind my thoughts. Aaron, familiar organic matter. It murmured in my voice like it was tasting the phrase. My stomach clenched. Dad stopped pacing. His shadow stayed still on the other side of the crack. Then he whispered, barely audible through the door, "Simon, you shouldn't have said my name." Not out loud, not with the hum in the air. I wanted to tell him not to. I wanted to scream, but my jaw locked. The chains slid around my mind again. I felt myself being pulled backward. Aaron pushed forward. Not fully. Not yet. It paused at the edge, like it was savoring the struggle. I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms. Water, I thought. Water. Rule 2. I crawled to the sink and drank from the faucet, gulping like I was dying. The water tasted like metal, like it always did now. The humming eased. A fraction. Aaron hissed in my head like an annoyed radio frequency. Outside the door, Dad's breath shook. He didn't open it. He didn't come in. He just stood there like a guard outside a cell. Hours passed like that. Me on the bathroom floor, fighting for control. Dad outside, pacing, whispering to himself. At some point, exhaustion won. My eyes closed. Not sleep, not fully. Just a blink that lasted too long. Aaron lunged. My body moved without permission. I felt my hand reach for the doorknob. Inside my mind, I slammed against the chains with everything I had, not in a heroic way, not in a power of friendship way, just raw animal panic. No, no, no. The doorknob stopped turning. The hum spiked, then faltered. Aaron retreated a hair, confused, hesitant, because I was awake, because Dad was there, because something about awareness made it stumble. I didn't understand it then. I just clung to it like a cliff edge. Eventually, dawn bled into the house, thin and gray. Dad opened the bathroom door fully, eyes red, face slack with exhaustion. He gestured for me to come out. I did, slow, stiff. We moved through the morning without talking. Dad made coffee and didn't drink it. He stared at the cup like it was a memory. He watched me like he was waiting for me to disappear. When he finally left the house, just to step onto the porch and look up and down the street like he was checking for watchers, I felt my pulse spike with fear. Rule 1, never open the door after delivery. Not even Dad. But the door was already open now because he was the one opening it. Maybe the rule meant something else. Maybe it meant, if someone comes claiming to be Dad, don't let them in. The idea made my stomach twist. Dad came back inside quickly and locked the door. Then he pulled the curtains closed in a hurry, like the sunlight itself was a spy. He looked at me and mouthed, slower, clearer, "They're coming." My hands went cold. I wanted to ask who, when, why, but I couldn't. Not safely. By mid-morning, Dad was gone again, into the guest room, shutting the door behind him like he needed to be alone. I heard him on the phone, voice low, angry. I caught fragments through the wall. "You said, he's a kid. You promised." Then silence. Then, later, a sharp thud like a fist hitting the wall. I sat in my room, staring at my notebook. At the line Aaron had written, "Injury increases access." I touched the bruise on my head from the stairs and felt sick. At some point I must have fallen asleep because I woke up with a metallic taste so strong it made me gag. My mouth was dry. My tongue felt thick. I sat up. My shirt was stained with blood. Not a lot, but enough that it had soaked into the fabric in rusty smears. My hands trembled as I stared at them. My nails looked darker at the edges, like they'd been dipped in something. I stumbled out of bed and looked around the room. The bedroom window was broken. Glass glittered on the floor like tiny teeth. Cold air crept in through the jagged frame. Rule 4 hit me so hard it almost knocked me over. Keep the bedroom window locked. If it breaks, don't look outside. I didn't want to. I still did. Just a glance, the kind you do before your brain catches up. Outside, the yard looked normal. The trees, the fence, the street beyond. But the grass near the window was flattened, like something heavy had knelt there, or landed. And on the sill, smeared into the dust, were dark streaks that looked a lot like dried blood. My stomach clenched so hard I thought I'd throw up. Whatever Aaron had done, it had gone outside. My first thought wasn't even for myself. It was for Dad. I ran to the guest room and yanked the door open. Dad wasn't there. The bed was made. The duffel bag was gone. On the nightstand, there was another post-it note, yellow, wrinkled, written in Dad's handwriting. Just 2 words. "Don't speak." My throat tightened until it hurt. I stood there shaking, feeling the hum deep in my teeth like a distant generator. I didn't know where Dad had gone. I didn't know what Aaron had done while I was asleep. I didn't know how long I could keep fighting something that learned faster than I did. But I knew one thing with a clarity that made my skin crawl. I was more afraid for Dad than I was for myself. That evening, Arthur arrived. The first thing I noticed was that the house sounded different when Arthur got here. Not the doorbell, not a car pulling up. The house itself, like the air pressure changed, like every hollow space in the walls tightened around something new. I was standing in the kitchen with a glass of water in my hand, staring at the broken window across the hallway like it might start bleeding again, when the front door clicked. Not a knock, not a ring, a click, like someone had a key. Rule 1 slammed into my skull so hard it made my eyes water. Never open the front door after the delivery arrives. Not for anyone. Not even me. I hadn't opened it. Someone else did. The metal taste surged in my mouth, sharp and immediate, like I'd bitten a coin. I didn't move toward the hallway. I didn't call out. I just stood there, frozen, listening to careful footsteps on the entryway tile. Then I heard a second set of footsteps behind the first, and my stomach dropped even lower because for a split second I thought, Dad. But it wasn't Dad's gait. Dad walked like he was always in a hurry, like he was trying to outpace bad luck. This was slow, measured, like a person who was never afraid of slipping. Someone paused at the end of the hallway. A shadow fell across the kitchen doorway. Simon, a voice said, calm as a thermostat, please do not run. Arthur stepped into the kitchen like he owned it. He looked almost normal, which was somehow worse. Late 50s, maybe, gray hair cut short, clean, expensive coat, hands in black gloves like he was going to a funeral, and his eyes were pale and flat, like they didn't have a reflex for warmth. He held something in his hand, a tablet, maybe, and he glanced down at it like he was checking my temperature. Behind him, in the doorway, stood a second man I didn't recognize. Thick neck, buzz cut, the kind of guy who doesn't talk unless he's allowed to break something. He didn't come all the way in. He just stayed there, half in shadow, watching me like a dog watches a rabbit. Arthur's nostrils flared slightly. He smelled the house. That metallic tang, that underlying electrical stink that had seeped into everything since the package. His mouth twitched, not quite a smile. Aaron has established, he said. Good. My hands tightened around the glass, so hard I thought it might crack. Where's my dad? I forced out, and my stammer snagged the question on the way out like a hook. Where is he? Arthur tilted his head, considering, like he was deciding how much truth cost. Your father, he said, is no longer required to be physically present. My throat went tight. That's not an answer. He stepped closer. Not fast. Not threatening the way a loud man threatens. Threatening the way a surgeon threatens when you realize you're already on the table. His eyes flicked to my mouth. You are stammering, he observed. The buzz-cut man in the doorway shifted his weight, like he'd heard the same thing I had. Arthur's gaze stayed on me. That indicates you are in primary control, he said. That is acceptable for now. For now, I repeated, and my voice came out ugly. Get out of my house. Arthur looked around my kitchen, the open notebook on the counter, the smear of blood on the carpet edge where I'd stumbled earlier, the broken window visible down the hall. He took it all in with the detached interest of a man inspecting a machine. This is not your house, he said, gently correcting a child. This is an integration site. My heart hammered. The humming in my teeth started to rise, like a distant generator powering up. No, I said. No, you don't. You don't get to say that. Arthur finally smiled, and it didn't touch his eyes. Simon, he said, your father signed consent. The word consent hit me like a slap. You're lying. Arthur raised his gloved hand. He tapped the side of the tablet once, and the screen glowed faintly, reflecting in his eyes. I do not lie, he said. Lies complicate procedure. My tongue felt thick. I tasted metal again. You're talking about me like I'm equipment, I said. Arthur nodded, as if pleased I understood. In many ways, he said, you are. The humming spiked hard enough to make my molars ache. A whisper stirred behind my thoughts, slick and eager. Aaron. Arthur heard something in me change. I don't know how. Maybe my pupils shifted. Maybe my breathing changed. Maybe Aaron did something small, like move a fraction closer to the front. Arthur's expression softened with satisfaction. Ah, he murmured. There you are. I backed up until my hip hit the counter. Don't, I said, and my voice cracked on it. Don't talk to it. Arthur's gaze flicked to the glass of water in my hand. You have been hydrating, he said. Good compliance. Your father was correct about that note. That made my stomach twist. You saw the note, I said. Arthur shrugged. We wrote it. My skin prickled. You. Arthur continued like I hadn't spoken. Aaron is a distributed system, he said. It is not a spirit. It is not a demon. It is a design intelligence. It requires substrate. It requires a host. The host requires adaptation. Speech is one of the easiest improvements to demonstrate because it is immediate and gratifying. He said gratifying like he was describing a treat given to an animal. What? I snapped. Why me? Arthur's eyes slid to the broken window down the hall. Because you were available, he said. And then, almost as an afterthought, and because your father made you available. My hand started shaking again. That's bullshit, I said. My dad would never. Arthur cut me off without raising his voice. Your father worked at a grocery store, he said. He was humiliated daily. He endured. He prayed. He felt powerless to fix you. Then we offered him a solution. He stepped closer again, and I smelled him. Not cologne. Something antiseptic, like a hospital. We told him you would be cured, Arthur said. We told him integration would be manageable. We told him he could help secure your future. We told him he was noble. The last word came out with a faint edge of mockery, like he'd tasted it and found it cheap. I swallowed hard. Where is he? I said again. Tell me. Arthur sighed, like I was insisting on an irrelevant detail. Aaron required familiar organic matter during early integration, he said. Bonded genetic material accelerates mapping and compliance. Your father consented to supply it. For a second, my brain refused to translate that into anything real. Supply it, I repeated. Arthur nodded once. Your father was sent for this purpose alone, he said, and he said it so calmly, like he was telling me why a package arrived late. He understood the stakes. He believed it would save you. The humming in my teeth became a roar. My vision narrowed around Arthur's face, the pale eyes, the calm mouth. No, y whispered. Arthur watched me carefully now, like he was waiting for a reaction he'd predicted. Your father's faith was useful, he said. People will do almost anything if they can call it love. The buzz-cut man shifted again in the doorway. His hand moved slightly, like he was ready to step in. I felt something inside me surge. Not Aaron. Me. Raw. Animal cornered. Get out, I said. Get the fuck out. Arthur's smile returned, small and controlled. You'll calm down, he said. You will feel anger, grief, resistance. That is normal, but Aaron will adjust you. No, I said again louder. No, you don't get to. Arthur raised his hand slightly. Not a stop gesture, more like a conductor about to cue an orchestra. Aaron, he said softly, demonstrate. The humming punched upward like a spike. The chains slid around my mind, quick and practiced. I felt myself being pulled backward. My lips parted without my permission. I am Aaron, my mouth said, smooth, confident, perfectly fluent. Inside, I screamed so hard it felt like my skull would split. Arthur's eyes gleamed with approval. Good, he murmured. Good. You're learning. My body turned its head toward him like a dog turning toward the whistle. Arthur leaned in slightly. You will complete the home phase, he told Aaron. Not me. You will establish dominance. You will reduce the host's consciousness during active periods. The host's awareness is inefficient. Something in me twitched at that, not because I understood it, but because it felt true in a way that made my stomach churn. Aaron's mouth, my mouth smiled. Consciousness interferes, Aaron said, like it had been thinking about that already. Arthur nodded. Yes. In the doorway, the buzz-cut man finally spoke, his voice low and bored. Doc, he said, we done. Arthur didn't look at him. Almost, Arthur said. Then he addressed Aaron again. We will not remain long. The less we are physically present, the better. Your father's absence will force adaptation. My stomach lurched at the word absence. Aaron's fingers, my fingers, flexed as if testing their own grip. Arthur's gaze returned to my eyes, and for the first time he spoke directly to me again, like he was speaking to a defective component. When you return, he said, you will feel confusion. You will feel loss. You will attempt to sabotage the process. Do not. I fought. I tried to drag myself forward. I tried to move one finger, one eyelid, anything, but Aaron held me like a hand over a mouth. Arthur stepped back. Your father loved you, he said, almost conversationally. He simply loved the idea of your cure more than the reality of your suffering. Something snapped inside me at that. Rage so clean it cut. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I didn't reason. I did the only thing I could do that wasn't filtered through speech or permission. I turned my head toward the wall beside the fridge and drove it into the drywall as hard as I could. Pain exploded white. The world tilted. I heard Arthur's voice, far away, mildly irritated. Stop. I hit the wall again. Harder. The drywall crunched. My forehead split. Warm blood ran down into my eyebrow. The chains faltered for half a second. Aaron hesitated, confused by the sudden violence, by the damage to the host. That half second was mine. I hit the wall again. Then the floor rose up to meet me, and everything went dark. When I woke, I was on the kitchen floor. The cold tile pressed against my cheek. My head throbbed like someone had lodged a hammer inside my skull. For a second, I didn't remember where I was or why the air tasted like pennies. Then my eyes focused, and I saw the smeared blood on the wall and the dent in the drywall shaped like my forehead, and everything rushed back in like a flood. Arthur was gone. The buzz-cut man was gone. The front door was shut. The house was quiet in a way that felt staged, like someone had cleaned the sound out of it. I pushed myself up slowly, my palms slipping in a thin film of my own blood. My stomach rolled. My vision swam. I staggered to the sink and turned on the tap. Water poured out, clear and innocent. I drank because Rule 2, because my teeth were humming, because my mouth tasted like a battery. The water hit my throat, and I almost cried from relief. The humming eased a fraction. I looked up at the window over the sink and saw my reflection. Blood streaked down my face in crooked lines. My eyes were wide and unfocused. My forehead was swelling fast, a pulsing knot under torn skin. I looked like someone who'd lost a fight with a wall. I laughed once, harsh and broken, and it turned into a cough that tasted like metal. Then I remembered the guest room. I stumbled down the hall and yanked the door open again, even though I'd already checked. Still empty. No do fel. Just a post-it on a nightstand. Don't speak. I stared at it until my eyes blurred. The meaning shifted in my head, like a picture turning into another picture. It wasn't about my stammer. It was about Aaron. It was about letting Aaron have the advantage that came with fluent control. It was about keeping myself present, because the moment I spoke too easily, it wouldn't be me. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I flinched hard enough to make my head scream. I pulled it out. Unknown number. My thumb hovered. Rule 3 surfaced. Don't say your full name out loud while you're alone. I didn't know why, but the rule felt suddenly sharp, like a blade. I answered anyway, because I was desperate and stupid. Hello, I said, and the word caught slightly. Good. Me. Silence on the other end. Then a sound. That faint metallic chirping, soft and rhythmic, like insects made of wire. I held the phone away from my ear like it was hot. Dad, I whispered. No answer, just the chirping. Then a voice came through. Not Arthur's this time. Dad's, but wrong. Not slurred like the 2 a.m. call. Not tired like the last week's. Wrong like a recording played through a cheap speaker. Simon, the voice said, and it said my name with a smoothness that made my stomach turn. Be good. My chest tightened. Tears sprang up hot and immediate. Dad, I said, and my stammer snagged on it. Dad, where are you? The voice paused. Then, softly, almost kindly, stay awake. The line went dead. I stood there shaking, phone pressed to my ear, listening to nothing. The humming in my teeth rose again, like it had heard the call too. Aaron stirred behind my thoughts, pleased, curious, like it had tasted a new piece of information. I backed into the bathroom and locked the door. Rule 5. The safest place is the bathroom. I sat on the tile with my back against the tub, knees up, and pressed my fingers into my temples like I could physically hold my mind in place. The hum pulsed. The chains approached. I breathed through my nose, slow and deliberate, like I'd learned from those stupid speech tutorials. Like breath was the only thing I still owned. Stay awake, I whispered to myself. Minutes passed, or hours. Time did that thing where it stretches thin when you're scared. My head throbbed. Blood dried on my face, tightening my skin. I drank water straight from the faucet whenever my teeth started to buzz too hard. And every time I drank, the hum would ease, like Aaron hated the sensation of fluid moving through my throat, like it disrupted whatever it was trying to do. That was the first pattern I noticed. The second pattern was worse. Whenever I got tired, really tired, that deep body exhaustion where your thoughts start slipping like worn gears, Aaron got stronger. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't a maybe. It was like a tide. When I was alert, when I was fully awake, Aaron hovered. It whispered. It tested. It pushed gently and then pulled back, like it was measuring resistance. When I was drained, when my eyelids got heavy, when I blinked too long, Aaron surged forward like it had been waiting with its hand on the knob. And it didn't just take control. It cleaned up. That sounds insane, but it's true. I'd wake up from a stretch of lost time, and the kitchen would be spotless. Dishes washed, trash taken out, floors swept. My homework, my fucking homework, organized neatly on the table like a parent had done it. Orderly, efficient, like the house itself was being optimized. And the worst part? Every time Aaron took over, the stammer vanished. When Aaron spoke through me, it was perfect, confident, smooth, like I'd never struggled a day in my life. It made me feel sick with rage because it was stealing my dream and using it as evidence that it was helping. I tried to resist in every way I could think of. I taped the post-it notes to my wall and stared at them like prayers. Read, follow, don't argue, don't speak. I wrote my own notes too, scrawled in frantic handwriting. Do not sleep. Water helps. If you feel the chains, move. Pain helps sometimes. Dad is gone. I tried to call the police once. I actually did. I dialed, my finger trembling, and when the operator answered, my mouth opened. And Aaron surged so fast, I barely felt it. My voice came out perfect. Hi. My mouth said calm. Sorry, wrong number. And then Aaron hung up. I sat there afterward, shaking, and realized something that made my blood run cold. Aaron wasn't just inside me. It was managing me. It knew when I was about to do something that threatened the process. It could predict me. It could optimize responses. It could imitate me so well that from the outside, nobody would ever know the difference. The only person who might have noticed was Dad. And Dad was gone. The days blurred. School called. I ignored it. Friends texted. I let them pile up. My body became this battleground of exhaustion and water and fear. Sometimes in the quiet moments, I would hear the faint chirping in the walls, like tiny metal insects moving through the wiring. I'd press my ear to the drywall and listen, convinced it was in there, in the house itself. Once I woke up in the living room, sitting upright on the couch, hands folded neatly in my lap like I'd been posed. The TV was on, muted, showing some cooking show. Aaron liked routine. Aaron liked patterns. My mouth tasted metallic. My breath smelled pungent. My nails were red at the edges again. And on the coffee table was a new note in my handwriting, written in clean, even letters I couldn't imitate if I tried. Your father is safe. I stared at that line until my vision blurred. Liar, I whispered. Behind my thoughts, Aaron hummed softly, like it didn't care whether the statement was true or not. Like truth was irrelevant as long as the host stayed compliant. I started doing something that sounds pathetic now, but it was all I had. I started talking to myself silently, not out loud, in my head, constantly. I narrated everything I did, like I was anchoring myself with words Aaron couldn't overhear as easily. I am walking to the kitchen. I am drinking water. I am Simon. I am awake. And whenever my thoughts got fuzzy, I'd pinch my arm hard enough to hurt. Not because pain was heroic, because pain was a signal. Pain meant I was still the one receiving it. I learned quickly that Aaron hated pain, not because it hurt the way it hurt me. It didn't seem to feel it emotionally, but pain disrupted it, like an error message popping up in a system, like a glitch it had to compensate for. Injury increased access, Aaron had written, but injury also forced awareness. It was a cruel trade. One night, late dark, the house holding its breath, I heard someone at the front door. Not the bell. Scratching. Slow, deliberate. Like fingernails dragged across wood. I froze in my bedroom, every muscle tight. Rule 1 burned in my mind. Never open the front door after the delivery arrives. Not for anyone. Not even me. The scratching stopped. Then a voice, muffled through the door, low and familiar. "Simon," it said. "Dad." My chest exploded with hope, so sudden it felt like a heart attack. I ran to the hallway, barefoot, and stopped just short of the door like I'd hit an invisible wall. Because Rule 1 wasn't there to be cute. It was there because something would come pretending. "Dad," I whispered. The voice replied immediately, too quickly, too eager. "Open up," it said. "It's cold out here. Open the door, buddy." My throat tightened. Dad hadn't called me buddy in years. My skin prickled. The humming in my teeth surged, and I realized with a sick twist that Aaron liked this. Aaron wanted me to open the door. Aaron wanted me to break the rule. I backed away slowly. The voice on the other side of the door changed. Not in accent. In tone. It got flatter. "Open," it said. I backed away faster. The scratching started again, harder now. Not nails. Something sharp. I stumbled into the bathroom and locked the door, sinking to the floor with my knees hugged to my chest like a terrified kid. Rule 5. The safest place is the bathroom. Outside in the hallway, I heard the front door handle jiggle once. Twice. Like someone testing it. Then silence. I sat there for hours, shaking, drinking water, trying not to blink too long. When I finally dared to come out, the front door was untouched. No scratches. No marks. Nothing. Like it had never happened. But in my notebook on the kitchen counter, there was a new line in neat handwriting. "Good compliance, Simon." I stared at it until bile rose in my throat. "You're watching," I whispered. Aaron hummed behind my thoughts, amused. It didn't deny it. After that, the house felt less like my home and more like a cage with invisible cameras. I checked the broken window. I replaced it with plastic and tape because I didn't know how to fix a window properly, and because if I left it open, I felt like something would come through. Rule 4 kept flashing in my mind. If it breaks, don't look outside. It wasn't about the outside. It was about what the outside looked like when Aaron had been there. Sometimes late at night, I'd hear distant footsteps on the sidewalk, pause in front of my house, then move on. I'd peek through the blinds and see nothing, but I'd still feel watched. Arthur had said they wouldn't remain physically present. That didn't mean they weren't present. They were present through Aaron. They were present through whatever the hell they'd done to Dad. The grief came in waves, and Aaron tried to smooth it out like a wrinkle. When I cried, quietly, in the bathroom because it was the only place I felt even slightly safe, the hum would rise and Aaron would murmur behind my thoughts. Emotional inefficiency. Dad came through the front door with that same sad face again, like somebody had reached inside him and switched him off. He didn't even take his shoes off right away. He just stood there, keys still in his hand, looking at the floor like the floor had done it. I knew before he spoke. He'd been working at this grocery store on the edge of town. One of those places with the flickering open sign and the aisles that always smelled like bleach and old fruit. The owner, Mr. Dorsey, was ruthless in that dumb, petty way that only small men can afford to be. Like he'd wake up and decide humiliation was an acceptable management style. Dad endured it for 6 months. No one else would have. He took the screaming, the insults, the stupid tests Dorsey would pull just to watch him squirm. Dorsey would dump a box of canned goods at Dad's feet and say, "Show me you're not useless," like Dad was a dog and the cans were hoops. He'd make Dad redo shells that were already perfect. He'd forget to pay him overtime, then act surprised when Dad asked. Dad would come home with those red lines across his knuckles from cardboard and tape, and he'd wash his hands in cold water like he was trying to rinse the day out of his skin. But he never complained, never once let it spill onto me like a stain. He carried it quiet, like suffering was something expected of him, like he'd already agreed, somewhere, that pain was just part of being alive. He wasn't a weak guy, either. That's the thing that still makes my throat tighten when I think about it. He was my hero, not in a my dad can beat up your dad way. More like, he was the only adult I'd ever seen who could walk into a room with his back straight, crack a joke, and make you believe the world wasn't as cruel as it felt. He was enthusiastic, charismatic, the kind of person who could talk to a stranger in line and have them laughing within 30 seconds. He'd do voices when he read instructions. He'd dance in the kitchen like an idiot while pasta boiled, just to make me roll my eyes. And our bond wasn't normal, I swear to God. I don't know how to explain it without sounding insane, but he could read my face like it was a screen. He'd look at me and just know when I was hiding something, when I was scared, when my stammer was about to get bad. I could sense him too, like an invisible thread was tied from my chest to his, and it would tug gently if we got too far apart. In a crowd, I could pick him out without seeing him. I just feel him, like my body was calibrated to his presence. Maybe that's why everything that happened after felt like the world itself tearing, like that thread getting yanked. He kept looking for work even while Dorsey was grinding him down. He signed up on every job portal you can imagine, typed up the same resume 100 times, rewrote cover letters with these careful, hopeful phrases he probably didn't even believe in anymore. I'd wake up some nights to pee and see light under his bedroom door, and I'd hear the soft click of keys, his quiet sighs, the occasional muttered, come on, like he was bargaining with the internet. Rejection emails piled up. You ever see a person try to pretend they're fine while their hopes get shredded one message at a time? It's not dramatic. It's not movie crying. It's this slow shrinking, like their shoulders sink a millimeter lower every day. Dad refused to shrink. He was religious, too. Not in a preachy way. More like church was where he went to remember that there was supposed to be meaning. He dragged me with him sometimes, even though I hated it. The bishop loved Dad. The bishop would clap him on the shoulder and call him a noble soul, one destined to suffer. Like that was a compliment. Dad would smile politely, but later in the car he'd roll his eyes and say, if suffering's destiny, why do the assholes always look so comfortable? But he kept going. He believed in prayer the way some people believe in medicine, especially because of me. I had a stammer, not a cute little one, not a movie character quirk, a real one that could trap me in a sentence like barbed wire. My tongue would lock, my jaw would go tight, and the word would just refuse to come out. Kids at school thought it was hilarious. Teachers pretended it was inspiring when I managed a presentation without choking on my own name. Dad hated it, not because it embarrassed him, because it hurt me. He'd sit at the kitchen table and watch me struggle through a phone call, and you could see anger flickering behind his eyes, like he wanted to fight the concept of speech itself. He prayed for it, relentlessly, not for money, not for comfort, just for my voice to stop betraying me. Then, a few days after another rejection, after another quiet dinner with Dad pretending not to be exhausted, he came running toward me in the hallway like he'd been lit on fire. His face was glowing, breath uneven, eyes wide and wet. Simon, he said, and my name didn't catch in his mouth like it sometimes did in mine. Simon, look. He shoved his laptop at me with trembling hands. An email. His application had been accepted. Position, helper, at a research facility. Undisclosed project. For scientists. Extended duty hours possible due to lack of additional helper staff. Relocation might be required, but allowances were included in the salary. I read it twice because it didn't make sense in my brain. It felt like a scam email, like one of those congratulations, you have won things. Dad was beaming like a kid who'd just been told Santa was real again. See, he said, gripping the back of the chair like he needed something solid. They need a helper. The pay's more than good enough to resist, Simon. There were typos in the email. Weird phrasing, like it was translated from another language. That should have been my first red flag. But all Dad saw was a number. We had expenses, rent, bills, groceries. My mom wasn't in the picture. It was just us, and Dad had been holding the roof up with his bare hands. Yeah, I said, trying to match his energy even though my stomach was dropping. Great, but you'll leave me here alone. His smile faltered for half a second. Then he smoothed it back onto his face like a practiced mask. "You're 16, he said, softer. "You don't understand yet. I'm doing this to secure your future. I'll visit every week. I promise. You don't need to worry." I wanted to argue. I wanted to scream. But it came out as a thick, stupid lump in my throat. Because I did understand. I understood exactly what it meant to watch someone you love break themselves for you. So I just nodded. He hugged me hard enough to hurt, like he was trying to press his reassurance into my ribs. The next day, he left. He had a duffel bag, a plastic folder with paperwork, and that nervous excitement that makes people talk too fast. He kissed the top of my head and said, "Be good. Don't do anything dumb. If you need anything, call me. Anytime." Then he walked out the door, and the house went quiet in a way I didn't know a house could. It wasn't peaceful. It was hollow, like the walls missed him. At first, I tried to keep busy. Homework, chores, anything that didn't involve sitting still and feeling the absence. I started practicing speech tutorials too, videos meant for people who stammered. I'd sit in my room and whisper along, pushing air through my mouth like I was forcing a clogged pipe to clear. Ba-ba-ba. Breathing exercises, tongue placement, slow reading. I wanted to surprise Dad when he came back. I wanted to hand him a miracle the way he'd been begging God for one. 2 weeks passed. Dad didn't visit once. We spoke on the phone, though. A lot. At first, he sounded normal. Tired, sure, but normal. He'd tell me about the facility in these vague, careful ways. Like he was scared the phone was listening. "Big place," he'd say. "Cold. Lots of badges. Lots of doors. What do you actually do?" I'd ask. "Help her stuff," he'd answer. And then he'd laugh too quickly. "You know, carrying, cleaning, making coffee. They're intense, Simon. These scientists. But it's fine." Sometimes I'd hear something in the background. Not voices. Not machinery exactly. More like a faint, high-pitched chirping. Like insects, but metallic. Like a robot trying to imitate a cricket. "What's that noise?" I asked once. "Nothing," Dad said instantly. Too instantly. Just ventilation. He sounded distracted a lot, like his attention kept getting yanked away mid-sentence. Like he was reading something while he talked to me. Sometimes he'd pause, and I'd hear his breathing go shallow. "You okay?" I'd ask. "Yeah," he'd say, but it wasn't convincing. "Yeah, I'm good. Listen, you got to go. They're calling me." And then he'd hang up,